Jake Paul just got exposed in his fight with Tommy Fury. And I don't see enough about how much of a destruction it was. He lost pretty much every round of that fight. You can maybe give him 2 rounds. You can give him the last round we got a knockdown and maybe one in between. But for the most part, he was outclassed completely. And I didn't hear it enough from the commentary. I thought that they, not biased, but they weren't doing a great job of communicating the fact that Paul was getting destroyed. And I just like this outcome. This is great. I think a lot of people had a problem with Paul, especially coming from an industry that people don't respect that much, like YouTube, to an industry that people really respect and really admire, boxing. And him beating some really good fighters in other sports who are older than him and smaller than him were very annoying for a lot of people, especially for me, because I was saying it from the start. I'm like, we haven't seen him without a weight advantage. We haven't seen him without a youth advantage. We don't know yet how good he is. All we know is he can punch hard. And he can. Jake Paul's a great puncher. He's got that down. He's a bit talented. He's a bit gifted in that department, it seems, as well. He can punch really hard. But in every guy he's fought so far, they've been older than him to a point of like, they're all getting up there in their 40s. And they've all been smaller than him. By boxing standards, a lot smaller than him, because boxing has a lot of weight divisions. By MMA standards, maybe a division or 2 smaller than him. Right? And it's just great to see it. I love the fact that we saw him get outclassed. And I like the fact that it was less of a damage-based one, just for the poeticness. If we saw him go out there and just get out-punched by a bigger puncher, you wouldn't see just how bad he is. But this fight really made it obvious that he can't box in certain areas. He has lacking some serious fundamentals. And I think a lot of people were seeing this for a while. And a lot of people wanted to say more about it, but they didn't really know where it was. Like, why do I not like him? I just think he's not that good. And I was like, but he's knocking guys out. It's like, yeah, but he's knocking out guys who are smaller and older and washed up and not that good. And that's what happens. As soon as you take away Jake Paul's advantages, as soon as he's not the bigger guy in the fight, as soon as he's not the more youthful fighter, he loses to a guy who's not that good. Tommy Fury should be kind of embarrassed that went to a decision. I like the fact that we just got basically a clinic from Fury with some basics, which I'm going to go over as well. Before we end this video, I want to go over exactly what basics he was lacking. Because for me, this fight was really repetitive. He just kept getting caught by the jab, comboed, and then Tommy would dip out or clinch up. Paul had really no answers for him here. And it was all just fundamentals. It was all just the little basics, the jab, the footwork, the head movement, the guard. Things like that he just couldn't get around. I also want to say that this was not a split decision as much as it's saying it was. That people, like the official result, was a split decision. I'm pretty sure that last judge just got really confused because there were so many points getting deducted and he's not that great at math. He was like, what, the 10-8 the last round and the 2 points over there. He just doesn't know what he's doing. Because that ref was confusing. That ref was just taking points off for anything. Someone would like cough the wrong direction. He'd be like, "Oh, point taken off." Like he was just running around. Like if you had points, he was taking them. Like that ref did not like points. He was like against them. He was like, "I'm taking all these points on every point I can get." I don't know why. That was weird. But he took 1 point off both fighters, so it kind of equaled back out. You don't have to take the point taking away that much at the end because it doesn't actually change the outcome of the fight. It's the same with that last judge. Like, as much as he didn't seem to know how to count and wasn't watching the same fight as everyone else, it didn't matter. He still had 2 other judges who could count and were watching the correct fights. So, Jake Paul really got destroyed in this fight. And I want to go over exactly the ways he did. Because if you listen to this breakdown and then you go watch the fight, I think you're going to notice really fast. And a lot of people are going to start to notice. We're going to get a lot of reports on it coming in very soon. Hopefully I'm the first. About the fact that Jake Paul is bad at boxing. And he can't box. Especially his defense. He's a good puncher. He can punch hard. He's a great punch and great in that little aspect of boxing, the punch hardness. Even though that's a pretty big aspect. But he hadn't got footwork to save his life. He hadn't got head movement to save his life. This whole fight was them trading jabs and Tommy just doing the jab more correct to the traditional boxing way, flicking it out there and then using it to set up combos. And then Jake Paul just like not having any head movement, just getting hit by the jab. And then when he would come in for a combo, all Jake Paul would do is put his hands up like this and duck. He would not catch it. He wouldn't use his shoulders or his arms. He would just try and put his hands there. And then Tommy would punch around his guard. His guard was even bad in this fight. You know, he'd set up a jab, come in, uppercut, left hook, right around the guard. Tommy Fury can't punch that hard, so it's not that bad for Paul, but Paul was still just getting lit up. This whole fight, he's just getting punched. He's just getting outboxed in every single instance. All right? That's what you go back and watch it, you're going to notice that. Now, Jake Paul was also landing jabs, but he was not landing them in any way to set up anything. He was throwing his arm out a lot and dipping his head down, which is all good to avoid a jab from the other person, but the way he was throwing it, he was off-centering his stance and not having any balance. He wasn't planning to set anything up with the jab, which is the whole point of the jab in boxing. To keep people away from you, to gauge your distance, and to set up combos. That's why you start a lot of combos with the jab, because you're already gauging your distance and keeping the other fighter at bay with it. You set it stuff off that. Jake wasn't doing that. He was throwing it out there. It was hard. He was still punching harder than Tommy. He's a great puncher, but he's not a good boxer. And that's a fundamental in boxing. You need to follow through with your jab and set up combos. He wasn't doing that. And that was one of the main differences in this fight. When he would throw jabs, he would just throw them out. When Tommy would throw a jab, it might come through with more punches afterwards. And that's what just was lighting Paul up through his guard, which wasn't doing anything. He couldn't dodge, he couldn't slip very well. He was slipping a little bit, but again, we'll compare the slipping. When Tommy would slip, he'd move to a position where he could throw more punches afterwards, because everything in boxing is about setting stuff up. You slip so you can rip, right? You jab so you can come through with a combo. You do all these things to set up things. Jake hasn't got that fluidity in boxing skill yet. He's just throwing jabs out there, or he's trying to move in with a big punch. He's not setting them up. It's the same way with his defense. He would duck, and then he would duck too far out of range. He doesn't have anything to throw back with from that range. He's not setting himself up with a dodge. He's not slipping, moving, and then countering. He's just slipping, moving out of the way. And that's all good, but now you've just given your opponent space. It's all good to avoid damage, but if you're never doing anything with those slips, if you're just dodging and that's it, you're not capitalizing off dodging their attack, it's not worth that much. And that's what we saw in this as well. He was dodging punches. He was just dodging them in a way where he couldn't fight back afterwards. So it's, again, another boxing fundamental that Tommy had over Paul. Jab and the defense. And really bad with the defense too. The guard, I can't believe the guard was that bad. I never noticed that about Paul. The fact that he would just keep his hands there and just hope that they would catch on there. He's not moving. He wasn't even moving his arms around that much. They were just going around his guard. It was good though. I think everyone really wanted to see that. A lot of boxing enthusiasts really wanted to see it. And I really wanted to see that. Just him get outclassed by someone. Finally his size. Finally who's actually a boxer. And finally someone who's just as young as him. It's almost like if you take away all of Paul's advantages, he ain't that much. He ain't got it. And I think Tommy Fury's not even that good. I think Tommy Fury's not going anywhere. He's not going to be a champion. Neither is Paul. They might be the champions of like a boxing league. A YouTube boxing league that they make one day. I don't know. But they ain't going to be the IBF, WBO, WBC. That's out of their reach. Then I don't think top 10 even for either of them. So this is Zaya's Fight Hype. I talk about anything I care to talk about. Please comment if you think I'm wrong. I love arguing with people. If you comment something below about Jake Paul winning, I'd love to laugh at you and show you how you're wrong. If you think I actually did get something wrong about this video, let me know. Comment and subscribe if you want to hear more rants and nonsense. I kind of cover mostly UFC, but I will cover boxing every time there's a big fight or one that I'm just interested in. I'm not sure I'll cover any of Jake Paul's fights again. This is kind of the only fight I wanted to cover of his because it was the only one that was fair. I was like, he's finally fighting someone who isn't too big, who isn't too small, who's not too old, who actually knows how to box in the discipline of boxing. You know, MMA fighters know how to throw good punches. They're integrated into MMA, but they're not schooled on directly how to box, right? It's a different sport at the end of the day. So I really like the outcome here. Jake Paul got exposed, and it was not a close fight. It was a clinic by Fury, and it will be a clinic from anyone who's boxed as long or longer than as Paul, anyone who's youthful, and anyone he hasn't got a size advantage against. He'll win. I think someone talked about KSI after this fight. I think they're going to do a rematch with Tommy. I see that happening the same way because the things that Tommy used to beat Paul in this fight, he's still going to have, right? What fundamentally made him win was the boxing fundamentals that he's built up over a decade. Unless Jake Paul goes back and really works on them for a long time, like maybe like a 10-month rematch or a 12-month rematch. But like 6 or 4 months, 5 months, he's not going to get that good. He's not going to replace all those bad habits. You know, he He was beaten by sheer boxing experience here. Tommy's not even that athletic or that good. You know, he's definitely not powerful. But he just had the fundamentals down. He had a really good jab he set things off of. He had a really good slipping in defense, which he would set things up off of. He had a very good guard that he would block with. He had good head movement. Paul just wasn't there in all those aspects. In all those basic aspects. Of course, I think if a lot of people in the world just stood in front of him and got punched, he does have a good punch. But that's not completely boxing, is it? You got to have something. Unless you're Deontay Wilder. Then you just, I don't know. You just punch. And eventually you just take someone's head off because your power is ridiculous and you're just naturally gifted. But that's pretty much my take on it. Let me know if you think I was wrong. Let me know if you think I was right. And I just wanted to get it out there. Jake Paul got exposed. And the fight was not close. And I'm so happy. I'll see you on the next video.